Welcome everyone to an introduction to intentional communication. We will give another minute for everyone to join in order to start. Thank you for your patience. I'm Lakritz, CEO and co-founder at Anchor, and today we're going to talk about something that I've actually been focusing at Anchor from day one. This is actually one of my deepest learnings from the past 15 years in leadership and management and building businesses, as all of you are doing. And I'm happy to do this session with my dearest friend, Dan, whom I'm proud to call a friend and a colleague. And Dan and I actually had this a similar session with his team a few months back. So let's see how it goes.
Ram, I want to say I really appreciate actually getting to participate with you in presenting this, because when you presented this session with my team, we had our internal company summit, and this was one of their most favorite sessions out of the whole event, our whole 3-day event. And so I'm super excited to be able to participate with you on this one, because intentional leadership, intentional conversation is such a critical component of not only leading an organization, but interacting in an organization. And I think it makes such a significant difference to be more mindful of it. So happy to share some thoughts with you as well.
Yeah, so cool. So there are two languages, right? One is numbers, and the second, which is predictable, it's clear to us and to everyone else, actually. And the second is words, which are much, much more tricky. When we say a number anywhere in the world, it means exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter what the language is, which country we are, what culture, how aware we are. It always means the same. Words, on the other hand, are much, much, let's say, flexible or soft. They can mean so many different things in different places, and between different cultures, or how tired you are, or how aware you are, or the tone you use. They are much harder to convey and to understand. Yet we all treat them the same. And when I did the session with your team, Dan, I actually started a bit differently, but I got to the same point where at Anchor, when we say that when two people meet and agree on something, and they feel that they're aligned, yellow and yellow. It goes with timelines and responsibility and tasks and probably everything that we do. A day later, they come back. One understood red, the other understood blue, and now we need to go back and communicate. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with it when we first meet with people and have a conversation. Like, we always feel excited about it because we feel like we're on the same page. 2 days later or a day later, we come back and we're like, oh, I interpreted that completely different than what you thought or what we stated. And even sometimes when you have notes and you come back to it, you still interpret it a different way. And so, like you said, you have to keep coming back to that. Like, how do we make sure we level set again? How do we make sure we view it from a different perspective to make sure that we're on the same line? So I totally agree with you on that.
Exactly. Actually, if you think about communication and you break it down, it's not always that loud. It's kind of invisible, and that's what makes it dangerous. And these costs of these misalignments with your team member, with your manager, with your employee, with your partner, with your customer, they can be very, very heavy. And the basis of these errors are how we communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talked about this example with me of bringing it into a different perspective and really changing that approach and coming back to it, it's really one of those focuses oftentimes where you start seeing about the role that you have as a leader in the organization to shift the dynamics. And honestly, to your point in this, and I think I love this, is it's discontinuing just this constant need to have a conversation or feel like it, to the point of listening and understanding where people are coming from so that we can get clarity.
Yeah, you can also better understand, and you get a chance, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, to reiterate your focus during the conversation, after the conversation, and help align the team members to do what you agreed on.
Absolutely. I love this statement that you have up here on the side, because I think it is something that oftentimes I like sinks deep into me when it comes to really trying to get momentum in an organization. But firms truly, and even organizations as a whole, truly don't lose momentum just from bad decisions. They lose momentum because of unclear conversations. They lose momentum because of the lack of alignment that they have within their company. No matter what it is that you're working on, from small to simple projects, if you're preparing for your 1099s at the beginning of the year, or if you're moving into a huge, software deployment or something like that within your team, if the company or if the organization doesn't have clear understanding of what is going on, it almost brings everything to a screeching halt.
That's super interesting, actually, because you're saying it's not only the cost of the communication, but the biggest cost, and that's kind of what I'm hearing, is actually getting everyone back to the table and fixing the error that we had and aligning everyone from the beginning, and then everyone is like more scared to do that tech or that customer, and that's when we get stuck.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's as accountants, oftentimes, and I think of this, like anytime you get assigned a new client, or anytime something, like you made the comment about tech, when you roll something out within your organization that you may have done multiple times before, it doesn't mean that you could just trust that everybody's on the same page as you're going through it. You really do have to restate. You really do have to re-clarify and make sure people understand, because ultimately, in some cases, the organizational motivations may have shifted. And so understanding where people are coming from, or even if there's a new team member, you have to make sure that alignment is there. If not, it can cause things to go off the rails pretty quickly, and can kind of decentralize the way that your organization is moving, which I think is crucial for us to be paying special attention to.
I completely agree, and I think that clarity builds trust, and we'll talk about it in a second. And I actually want to go to this amazing book. Whoever didn't read it yet, super recommended. And it's called Overcoming the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. So he actually talks about it, as you see here, from the negative side. So he says, listen, if there is an absence of trust in your team, you can't have conflict. And if you can't have conflict, then you don't have commitment from the team. And if there is no commitment, there is no accountability. And without accountability, you can't have any intention for results. So I've been working on these theories for a decade, and what I learned during this decade is that actually we need to overcome one dysfunction, and if we overcome this one dysfunction, which is communication, the rest follows. So once you have healthy communication and everyone is aligned and everything is on the table, and you have empathy and everything we'll talk about, then you build trust. Once you have this trust, you can have a conflict. You can wait, this tech that we wanted, I'm against it. Suddenly he can say that, so he doesn't only think it, or customer, or the way we solve a tax or a 1099 or whatever. Then we can actually disagree, but commit, because we had the conflict, we understand the situation, and then when we commit, we can be accountable, and then we drive results. Okay, so let's define communication for everyone.
Yeah, communication truly is that exchange of information to achieve and reach a very specific goal that you're trying to look for, or you're trying to work towards. A lot of firms really do a good job having conversations or talking, setting process in place, and going through their SOPs and things like that. But they oftentimes misalign on what they're actually truly trying to achieve through that communication. What is the end goal? What is the end objective that you're seeking to accomplish? And that truly is the big piece with this. Is it's not just our moving towards one thing. It's what is the goal that we're trying to acclimate or adjust to? What is our principal core beliefs that we have in our organization? How does that tie to it? All of those things have to play into that whole process of communication with our team.
Yes, that's actually the key here, is to understand that the definition has two sides. The first is we're exchanging information, and talk is very, very, they say talk is cheap. talk is very easy. You can take words out of your mouth. Once you need to achieve a goal with it and to understand where the other person is and etc., it becomes intentional, but it also becomes much, much harder. And when we say intentional, we mean being aware, being in control of the situation, of the words, of the feelings, being strategic from the beginning, from the moment we decided that we want to achieve something, and the method is actually our communication. That's not the goal. And it's hard to do that every time, all the time. But the more you do that, the more you actually save time and energy from other tasks and actually more relentless and bad communication that we use.
When everybody understands the intent, or you all have intention at the same time as a part of that communication piece, it's a lot easier to be more clear with the objective of what you're working towards. It's a lot easier to accept that you disagree at certain times. It doesn't mean that, you can't have disagreements. It doesn't mean that everybody's just thumbs up and is amazing and feels so excited about everything. It means that you're moving towards the same objectives and everybody's on the same page, which I think is crucial. It's crucial to really achieve the best of what you're trying to accomplish.
Actually, I'm super interested. Like, we did this, I don't remember, October last year. Do you feel that you started to practice? Do you feel like change in the team, that it's starting to boil down to the whole broader team?
Yeah.
Something you talk about as a team?
Yeah, absolutely. It's becoming much more a part of who we are as a company.
That's amazing.
When people ask questions, when they run into situations, we're in the process right now of building out a couple of changes in our organization when it comes to kind of workflow and time allocations and kind of overall expectations. Like we're getting ready to release some new educational things to help support our team in growth and development. And the biggest piece we keep talking about as a part of that is, how do we make sure that people understand that we're not trying to take away from just doing their regular work? We're not trying to add more to their plate. As great as it feels sometimes to say, hey, we're providing these things to you to make your life better. Sometimes people always, this is a part of the kind of the initial conversations we had is, how am I going to get the rest of my job done? What's going on with that? Like, how am I going to achieve these things, and what's the outcome expectation? And so going through it with that context of knowing what these potential questions are going to be, and knowing how much clearer we have to communicate and make a stepped approach to certain things, it's becoming a part of who we are, and it's becoming a part of how we talk and interact with each other.
That's amazing. Let's try to help everyone that's watching out right now to get to the same point, because talking is an instinct. We talked about it in the beginning. It's really the thing the tool that we use most is communication, and where we want to get to is using intentional communication as leaders. And almost everyone that's on the call today is a leader. So would you like to start?
Yeah, definitely. Truly the first step of intentional communication is that preparation process. If you haven't taken the time to prepare yourself before the meeting, you're already setting yourself up for miscommunication. Preparing yourself means making sure you understand your objectives. It means making sure that your team, if showing up to the meeting, they have to have thoughts and considerations going to it. They're prepared for that conversation. The first portion of that meeting and discussion should be a level set from where people have come from before, with the objectives and all those alignment pieces that we had to do in that preparation process. It shouldn't be, let's come together and then learn what we're trying to do and trying to accomplish. And so that preparation piece is so critical to moving forward and truly having success.
I can't emphasize that enough, and it's very natural for us to prepare for a test or for a field trip, and for all these things. But when it comes to saying word, because it's an instinct, because it's so easy, we just use them, and then exactly what you said. We get stuck in the middle.
But to that point, there really is these three core questions that I think we need to be all asking ourselves in preparing for these meetings or preparing for these discussions in conversations with our team. And that is, what truly is my goal? What am I trying to accomplish with this meeting? What am I trying to accomplish with this initiative? And really getting that understanding ourselves. The next piece, of course, with it is what are the other people in this meetings and discussions goal as well? Like, what do I believe they're attempting to get out of this? Or what do I believe and understand that they're trying to accomplish in the same process? And then what does alignment look like? How do we make sure that we can come to a resolution at the end, that where our outcomes are on the same plane and going in the same direction? They're not always going to be, perfectly aligned in every capacity, but if they're moving forward, that is one of the most critical components of it. And it's making sure that those are constantly moving together as a part of that flow. And so really it's about making sure that you're prepared with these three questions in mind, and making sure that you're thinking about the objectives of what's going on, preparing for it, so that you can lead versus just guess what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and we kind of do it for the most important meetings that we have. We ask what's in it for them when we're on a sales call, and we have a goal of closing a client or increasing price. So we kind of even naturally do it. Now what we're trying to tell everyone is to try to, more and more be aligned with your goals in every communication opportunity that you get. And you'll see the difference and the improvements that go from there. So at Anchor, I actually write down the answers to these questions and the desired outcome almost for every meeting. So for every key meeting, of course, for every meeting that that has more than one person. But even if I come for a one-on-one, I'll have on the side, on the right-hand top side of on the top right-hand side of the paper, the goal of this meeting. Sometimes it's to strengthen someone. Sometimes it's to make them be there for them. Sometimes it's mastery and they need to learn something that we need to do. Sometimes it's just supporting them. And the whole meeting and my whole communication will be set from that.
Now that we've gone through the context of preparing and making sure that we're aligned with it, the second step really is being intentional in our communication and being intentional in the way that we're talking. It's really not just having a conversation. It's really not just communicating or talking from that perspective. It has to truly become an instinct of what your intentions are. It really needs to become who we are in that kind of internal piece. And so when you are having this discussion, when you are moving things forward with it, using frameworks and things like, can I clarify what you just said? That allows for alignment. To that same point, that preparation process is so critical as a part of this too, and really making sure that we're coming into these discussions calm and making sure that we're confident about the intent of what we're trying to be. It's oftentimes one of those things that being confident can come across oftentimes as arrogance. And I think that's something that's really important for us to be aware of when we come to these really critical conversations or company meetings, is that when you come more calm in the conversation, you come more like you have prepared and you're ready to understand and ready to hear and ready to be a part of the discussion, it beats out that confidence aspect every single time. Also, to the same point with that, when there are situations or times when there is silence, or that we prepare for that as a part of our conversation, it can create intentional value in that relationship. It can contain intentional opportunities with it, because it's giving time to think. It's giving time to absorb. It's giving time to really process what the discussion's about. And that's on both sides. That's both on the provider or the giver of the discussion. That's on the receiving end at the same piece. And so knowing that and preparing for that is really where you start to create real power. in the conversation overall. And then, of course, spending 10 hours having a conversation with someone, just using words and going through everything, oftentimes creates too much for people to process. And so truly making sure that the words you say, the framework of what's being used, are very precise, are very clear, and are restated, really create that true alignment for you and the people that you're interacting with.
At Anchor, I'm working with the leadership to try to always kind of reassess our goals and the next sentence and what is it trying to achieve. And when someone has this conversation that he was super calm and controlled and he was working on these two channels, you feel energized after a discussion like that. It's not those draining discussions that you get out and like, wait, what did he understand? And you're jumping to the next thing. So we're training on this as a leadership team, but also on the broader team all the time. And the impact is enormous. And you see it like in stages. Someone has a communication level, he works, and then suddenly he does this jump and he feels it. You feel how you are with it.
And I think one of the parts that is so important in this piece, and that's as we prepare, as you're prepared to talk, as you're prepared to even make sure you have time to listen, there's other things that you need to consider with it as well. And there's really even more of a hidden skill that you need to be considering with this as well, which is honestly listening for the metadata. And of course, metadata is all the things that are going on around the conversation. These are the way eye movement is happening. It's the way people are considering with their body gestures. It's the way that are they writing notes down? What are they doing as a part of that? And when you in your conversation can be observant in all of those pieces, it really helps you to also understand how they're absorbing the interaction you're having with them. It's also helping you to understand how you may need to potentially adjust. That time when you're having that maybe potential hard conversation or really difficult challenge, and people squirm a little bit in their seats, or they, kind of have an eyebrow raise, which sometimes is really hard to see on the Zoom, or in virtual settings. Yeah. But when you're paying special attention to those things, that really becomes a value add for you as a leader, and it really is a hidden skill. It's something that takes some time to adjust and get comfortable with.
For all of us accountants, the metadata is all the data in our communication that doesn't exist in numbers.
Yep.
Numbers are predictable and direct. Words have all this luggage on them and baggage that you need to read and understand and kind of learn from so you can improve.
Yeah. Most people hear words. They hear what's going on. They understand, or they try to absorb all the things that are going on. But truly great leaders hear what's behind each of those words. Organizations that have leaders that are ahead of those groups of people that are listening, that are absorbing, that are paying special attention, really have the opportunity to achieve much more because they're understanding what's happening. To your comment about the number side of things, and numbers are predictable. We can understand, and accounting is one of those really awesome principles where everything has to tie, right? Like there always has to be to that core root and principle. That's not the same way in communication. Communication, there sometimes is absolutes that you have to prepare or focus towards. Sometimes there's not, but really understanding what's behind them creates that opportunity to make sure that you really understand what's being heard. You really understand how to also make sure it's being communicated correctly to your team.
So I completely agree. And listening to the metadata means you need to open more radars in your head and really pay attention to everything that you said. Where is this person coming from? How tired she is? What is she? What's the tone? What's the pace? Hesitation, silence, the body language, everything that once you start being aware of and you're in control of the conversation, you can actually kind of reflect with her. So let me see that I understood you right. Are you this and that? And doing those constant alignment, you can align the whole conversation to one conversation that two people are actually having and understanding each other.
Yeah. The statement you just made of, or the question that you just kind of answered or asked yourself was, did I hear you right? That really is one of the most, I think, truly one of the most important questions that we as leaders can ask our team, especially when they're providing feedback to us. This is really the opportunity for us to take that time often to reflect or re-reflect on the conversation overall, make sure that it's aligning with our core objectives as an organization, and really help sink in and make sure that we understand that if in situations where maybe you didn't understand what was going on, or even when you restated did I hear you right, and they're like, no, that wasn't my intention, that creates such a stronger togetherness in expectation, because both parties feel like not only they're being heard, but they also feel like they're on the same page, which is a huge win and creates huge opportunity for success. So we've prepared, we've gone through all of our initial framework of everything, then we talked, we shared everything with everybody, making sure that they understand what our objectives are and our goals are, and then we stopped, right? And we listened. This is all the impact or focus that we're supposed to be targeting towards. But now we get to talk again, right? No. We're not supposed to be planning to talk again.
Exactly. Absolutely not. So if you look at it in two different ways, the linear conversation is like the high level, the people that know how to communicate. They prepare, they talk, listen, talk, listen, talk, listen, talk. There is nobody's stopping for a second. Maybe the goal changed. Maybe I don't understand the alignment. And the intentional communication is actually more like a cycle. We prepare, we talk, we listen. We have this second of silence to think, is something changing here? Are we aligned? Do we understand for the next step? Okay, we talk again, we listen. And we keep going in two different circles that for two different people that are trying to become one at some point and align. And then once we're aligned, we can commit, we can drive results.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too, one of the big pieces with it too is you keep focusing on this, which I think is critical, and that's consistency is one of the most overlooked aspects of intentional communication. It's not something that can just happen once. It's something that has to continuously happen over and over again. And to your point of, prepare, talk, listen, and then prepare again to talk, it doesn't just go in that cycle of prepare, talk, or talk, prepare, talk, listen. You have to really make sure that you're absorbing what's going on in the conversation. You have to really make sure that you're creating that flow of better preparation in that piece, because that's really where movement happens. That's really where change starts to happen, but it takes time, and it takes a constant reminder for yourself that this is something that we're progressively moving towards being on the same plane with as we move forward as an organization. Now, one of the big parts that I love with this, and this is one of my big pieces that I do with my leadership team specifically, is we really do have weekly recap meetings. We go over, we talk about what's going on, we make sure that we have this structured check-in aspect with it. If there's decisions or things that we presented this last week that we need to make sure we're staying on top of, we're going through all of those things again. We're making sure that we're still aligned, we're on the same page. We're also making sure that nothing slipped through the cracks as a part of that process as well too. Because in those situations, if we allow things to slip through the cracks, it creates misalignment again, which is not something that we want to happen, right? Miscommunication really can become a huge snowballing effect that can derail us from where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do. The next big piece too, of course, with that is having monthly reflection sessions. These, of course, are much more strategic. They can also be a part of that one-on-one that you have with that person, but this is where we take a step back. We look at what we've accomplished in the last month or in the last period. We look at also too, like, is there possibilities where we had a miscommunication or a breakdown in that process? What did we learn from that? How do we adjust in that too? And then also too, what assumptions did we make throughout this past month that we potentially didn't hold to? All of that is so critical as a part of those that repetitive process making.
I love what you said and how you divided the repetitiveness to consistency. And it's not only doing it once a week or once a month, but it's being consistent that the other side knows that this is how you two communicate. And then at some point, once you practice it enough, from the beginning, you'll be in the same circle because both will say, wait, are we aligned? Is this what we're doing? Is this the goal? And then it's everything becomes much, much easier, and it kind of maybe compounds the value of better communication.
I love the statement you just made about compounding, because I think that truly is the part that really is the value that's created from these intentional conversations and intentional listening and preparation. Is it does become that huge snowballing effect that when people are much more aligned, it's easier to move mountains together. It's easier to accomplish so much more.
Yeah, there is actually no other way other than together. For you, Together Summit. but I think that the underlying message is talking is what people do. Intentional communication is what leaders do, and we are all leaders in this room. And thank you so much for joining us. And Dan, if you have anything else you would like to say to everybody, then,
Yeah, definitely. No, I appreciate you. I mean, honestly, I appreciate you sharing this with my team several months ago. It really has created a big impact in our organization. To your comment about, intentional communication truly is what leaders do. It is. Those people who are truly aligned and understand and know what objectives they're trying to accomplish and are listening to their team throughout that process and continuing to reiterate the focus and need for us to be on the same page and creating strategy around it really helps your organization become stronger. It helps you to be able to achieve more together and really helps you to be able to be constantly aligned in the objectives that you're moving towards. And as you mentioned before, it doesn't mean that we always get what we want as a part of that, that end result of it. But we are on the same page, which is ultimately what we want. That's how we actually create momentum and movement, is by being on the same page.
Yeah. So thank you again, Dan, and thank you, everyone. And if someone has any questions or we can help in any way, talking also for Dan, I will be happy to connect and see how. So thank you so much.